Hi students, this is Mr. Yao. Today we are going to learn about 1.6a. We're going to learn to factor quadratics with leading coefficient not as 1. So yesterday we have learned how to factor anything with just x squared and then a bunch of other things plus x, plus some x, and plus a number or minus. And today in this lesson we are still working with ax squared plus bx plus c, but this time when the a is not equal to 1. So let's always start with a multiplication. Let's do a quick big idea again. So if I ask you to multiply these two parentheses, you would distribute. So that's going to give you 2a squared. 2a times negative 3 is minus 6a. And then negative 1 times a is a minus a. Lastly, negative 1 times negative 3 is a plus 3. So you had all these four terms, and then combine them. 2a squared minus 7a plus 3. Well, so if I asked you to go backwards, instead of going directly to think about, oh, how do I separate them into parentheses? What if you can go back to this middle step and then go back to the parentheses? Because we have learned how to do factor by grouping already, and it is actually used for 4 terms. So this middle step actually had 4 terms. So you can somehow get to this middle step, then from there on, you can just group the first 2 together, group the last 2 together, and then keep factoring, then you would get your parentheses. So in other words, you can see the first term stay there, the last term stay there. As soon as we know how to break down this negative 7a, so how to break down this negative 7a into a negative 6a and a negative 1a, we're good. And then we can just do factor by grouping. So that is going to be today's method, which is the grouping method to factor quadratics with leading coefficient not as 1. Now let's get into an example. First step, no matter what, is going to be find the GCF of the expression. In this case, there is no GCF, so we're moving on to step 2. Step 2 is keep the first and last term and create 2 middle spaces. And that is exactly what we are going to do. So we're going to keep the first term, which is 2a squared. We're going to keep the last term, which is negative 3. And then we are going to create 2 middle spaces because we are going to need to break apart that negative 5a. Step 3, well, this is always the same. This is the core for factoring quadratics with leading coefficient not as 1. Doesn't matter what method you use, you still need to use to find those combinations. So we're going to multiply a times c and then find all the pairs of numbers that multiply to give us that product. So a is 2. C is negative 3, so it's going to be negative 6. Let's start breaking it down. It's going to be 1 and 6, 2 and 3. And in this case, we need the middle number to be negative 5, and it's a negative 6. So one of the number has to be negative. Since they need to add up to a negative number, well, there we go. The bigger number has to be negative. So step 4, from all the pairs, find one pair that adds to get the middle coefficient. And decide on the signs based on the constant. So negative is they're going to be different, and plus they're going to be the same. So in this case, we have found has to be 1 and negative 6. And then we're going to put a pair of numbers with the assigned variable in the 2 spaces. And then we're going to do factor by grouping. So it's going to be a 1, which means it's actually a 1a, and it's also a negative 6, so it's going to be a negative 6a. We're going to add some signs in the middle. So now we actually have 4 terms. Then the rest, we are going to do factor by grouping. So we're going to group the first 2 terms together, 2a squared plus 1a. And then remember, whenever we do factor by grouping, we always keep the middle as a plus sign. We'll deal with the negative sign later. This will always remind us to factor out that negative sign. So it's a plus, then it's negative 6a minus 3. If we factor the first pair, we're going to factor out an a. We have a 2a plus 1 left. For the second pair, it's negative 6a and negative 3, so we're going to factor out a negative 3. Then we will have 2a plus 1 left. Again, when we divide everything by negative 3, that negative 3 divided by negative 3 becomes a positive 1. And then you see the parentheses are the same. We're going to keep that on the back. And then in the front is a minus 3. There we go. That is factor by grouping, and this is how we can use the grouping method to factor quadratic with leading coefficient not as 1. So the process is just to break down that middle number so that we can have 4 terms to do factor by grouping. Now let's try a few examples. Example 1. Copy the first term, 4p squared, copy the last term, plus 5, and then 2 middle spaces. And we need to find numbers that could be combined to be 4 times 5, which is 20. So 1, 20, 2, 10, 4, 5. But we need them to add up to 21. And we can see the number pair has to be 1 and 20. So we will have a 1p and 20p. Now we can start grouping them together. 4p squared plus 1p plus 20p plus 5. And here's the thing. 1 and 20, you don't have to put a 1p in the front and a 20p on the end. Even if you switch them, this will still work because you are still just doing factor by grouping in the next step. Say 4p squared and 1p, they share a p. Let's take it out. Then we have 4p plus 1 left. On the back, 20p plus 5. The GCF is a 5. Take it out. Then we have 4p plus 1 left. Inside the parentheses, you see they're the same. So 4p plus 1 on the back. And in the front, we will have p plus 5. There we go. That's example 1. Example 2. Always check the first step, which is GCF. In this case, we do have GCF. 18, 15, and negative 12. We can take out a 3. So let's take it out. 3, then we have 6b squared plus 5b minus 4 left. So we're going to take apart that whatever is left inside the parentheses. So keep the first 6b squared, keep the last negative 4, 2 middle spaces, and we need to find numbers that multiply to get the 6 times negative 4, which is negative 24. 1 and 24, 2 and 12, 3 and 8, 4 and 6. They need to add up to a positive 5, and it's a negative 24. Since they need to add up to be more positive, that means the bigger numbers has to be positive, so the smaller numbers would have to be negative. In that case, pair would have to be negative 3 and 8. So we have a negative 3b and plus 8b. Let's group them together. 6b squared minus 3b plus 8b minus 4. Inside the first parentheses, their GCF is 3. Then we have 2b minus 1 left. On the back, 8b and negative 4, their GCF is a 4. Then we have 2b minus 1 left. So both parentheses are the same. Put it on the back. In the front, it's going to be 3b plus 4. But let's not forget, we have factored out a GCF. That needs to be in the front, which is a 3. That is example 2. Moving on. Example 3. Same thing, GCF always first. GCF, 10, negative 21, and negative 27, they don't share any number, but we can have a v out. Let's take out the v. We have 10v squared minus 21v minus 27 left. Copy it down. 10v squared, negative 27 on the end, 2 middle spaces. So we need to find combinations for 10 times negative 27, which is negative 270. And this way, you can either use the calculator or you can start writing down some combinations, which in this case would actually be a lot. 1, 270, 2, 135, 3, 90, 4 doesn't work, 5 doesn't work, 5 would be 54, and 6 would be let's see, 45, 7, nothing, 8, nothing, 9, 30, and 10, 27, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 could have 18, and that's about it. If you go 16, 17, and then you're going to start repeating. So it's quite a bit. So again, you can use your calculator. Let me remind you, if you want to use your calculator, you are going to press y equals, and then you're going to type in negative 270 divided by x. And then it's second, and then it's graph. That is for you to find all the combinations. And in this case, because it's a negative, so we need, it's a negative in the middle, so we need the bigger number to be negative. And the pair should be obvious now. It's 9 and negative 30. Plus 9v minus 30v. Let's group them together. 10v squared plus 9v. Keep the middle as a plus. We have negative 30v minus 27. First parentheses, you can factor out of v. We have 10v plus 9 left. Second parenthesis, negative 30v and then negative 27. You can factor out a negative 3. Then you have 10v plus 9. Since you factor out the negative 3, you're dividing everything by negative 3, so all the signs would actually change. So 10v plus 9 would be on the back, and v minus 3 is going to be in the front. But don't forget, you have factored out a GCF that still needs to be in the front. That is example 3. Moving on, example 4. GCF, no GCF, so moving right into the steps. 12x squared, keep the first term. Negative 6, keep the last term. Let's break the middle number apart. So we have to multiply and get negative 72. 172, 236, 324, 418, 5, nothing, 6, 12, 8, and 9. The middle number needs to be a negative 1. So we need the bigger numbers to be negative, and they should be quite close right here. It's 8x and a negative 9x. Group them together, 12x squared plus 8x. And plus, again, in the middle, for grouping, always plus. Then deal with all the negative signs in the next step. Okay, 12x squared and 8x, we can factor out a 4x. Then we have 3x plus 2 left. Negative 9x and negative 6, we can factor out a negative 3. And we also have a 3x plus left. So you have seen a few examples. Again, if you have the negative sign, you gotta factor out the negative, and then all the signs inside the parentheses will change. So we have 3x plus 2 on the back, and then in the front we have 4x minus 3. So this is also a quick review on how to do the factor by grouping method. And that is everything for this factor quadratic with leading coefficient not as 1 using the grouping method. Thank you.